New York Knicks. Knicks travel into Memphis, win 114-113 over a team that was second in the Western Conference. Another win versus a 500-plus team, despite the struggles against the Cavs and the Celtics earlier last week, or I should say the late end of last week, but regardless. This is Luca from KnicksCast saying thank you all for the support first off, but if you guys continue to like the content, please hit that like button, please hit that subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell so you know when I go live or I drop a new video. Regardless, let's get into it. So to start out the game, this was very fast-paced. Memphis Grizzlies are a young team. Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson, Brandon Clark, Desmond Bane, a lot of young kids. The Knicks prefer a slow pace. So the pace of the game actually went the Grizzlies' way, but regardless, the Knicks and the Grizzlies didn't shoot it well from downtown. More so the Knicks, but a lot of points were being scored in the paint. And I'll say this to just for the record before when I move off the pace. Deuce McBride had one hell of a game. Despite not starting, he probably could have got more minutes, and he played about 28, which I thought was the requisite and is good enough, especially if you want to give Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby some rest. Deuce McBride continues to be a menace when it comes to defense. He was a +9 on the floor, 17 points, 7-11 from the field, 3 of 5 from downtown, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals. McBride had some nice matchups with Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, and also just offensively, the way that he impacts on the floor. I thought he really could have closed this game. Now, he did with the defensive lineup being on there for the last 2 possessions. And it was interesting because McBride was obviously playing really well. Offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball, spacing the floor, getting steals, creating turnovers. And one of the things that helped the Knicks win this game was how many times Memphis turned it over. They're not a team that keeps the ball safe. They don't keep their eye on the ball. A lot of foolish turnovers. Yet that's what happens sometimes when you play a fast pace where you turn over the ball way too much. It was costly for Memphis. And the Knicks, I thought, were able to create points off the turnover, which was really good. But just to dive a little bit late into this game, Miles McBride was playing his ass off. He was on the bench. Tibbs obviously sees that Josh Hart's starting to get in foul trouble. He gets his 4th foul. It took Tibbs 4 fouls for Josh Hart, who I thought played okay tonight. You know, he had some nice points. But overall, my biggest gripe with Josh Hart was not only the fouls. He had 5 personal fouls, by the way, to end this game. And as well, as much as he's that grit and grind player, the guy plays with a ton of heart, no pun intended. There are times, and especially in the last 2 games with the Sixers, which really brought that game close when it didn't need to be, where he was turning over the ball way too much. He was not reading the floor. He was also at times both on defense last game and this game where he was just standing far away from the three-point line, too far away from the perimeter where open shots were being made from 3. So Josh Hart, I think, has been okay defensively this year, but the last 2 games have been a bit of a struggle. And with Miles McBride being out there, the Knicks have been surmountably better, not just from less turnovers and better defensively with a better point of attack defender, but also in terms of just the overall spacing aspect. So I really want Tibbs to try at the end of games, having Deuce close or having Deuce play as amount of minutes he played tonight, 28. But just wanted to dive into that real quick. I thought Deuce was the most well-rounded player out of everybody tonight, and we'll obviously get into the others. And a little bit about that as well. It's funny, when Josh Hart was subbed out after 4 fouls, as I said, he finished with 5. It might have been 5. Yeah, it was 5. When he was subbed out after the 4th foul, he was actually subbed out for Landry Shamet, which was comical at best. Because Shamet, yes, he had 5 points. He contributed a little bit. To me, he's never been a man of impact, and I'd like to see the Knicks change that. So, another guy that we obviously have to get into is OG Anunoby. Had the game-winning 3. I really, must I say, before I get into his offense, and I'll talk about that a little bit, I really liked his matchup with Jaren Jackson Jr., just showing how versatile he is. Now, Jaren Jackson, very good offensive player. He won some of those matchups because of the height advantage, and Jackson, getting into the paint and all. But OG, we all appreciate, and this is the best part of OG, his versatility, his ability defensively, his physicality when he's playing against the bigger guys like a Jaren Jackson or Giannis. and that takes the pressure off Karl Anthony Towns. Now he was guarding Brandon Clark most of the night. Clark is more of a lob threat, and he can chase the boards as well. And that's something that the Grizzlies did really well tonight, was the offensive boards and just the rebounds in general, which is something the Knicks struggled with, but they got some of their opportunities with Mitchell Robinson, who I'll bring it up to a task in a little bit. But OG Anunoby, his ability defensively, his ability to take on any matchup, even there were times where he was guarding John Moran, I thought he looked pretty well. But getting to his offensive side of the ball, for about a time now, I think there's been some lack. His offense game was there's just more desire from the fans in general to say, you know what, this is not the OG on offense we know. Now we're not expecting him to go off like he did in Game 2 of the semi-conference finals, where he just completely went full Kawhi mode against the Pacers while Jalen Brunson was hurt. Obviously, that ended with OG pulling a hammy. Would play a little bit in Game 7, he would be hurt. But regardless, we're not expecting OG to be like that. But this game, a lot more consistent with the shooting. 7-17 from the field, okay. 4 of 10 from 3 with obviously the critical 3 at the end with about 4 seconds to go. OG, being locked in. That's what we need. That's the OG we need. And him being the unsung hero was great, because when I talk about his offense, it's not just in terms of the shooting aspect, where he's still trying to recuperate from that foot injury. It's also the finishing aspect as well. It's just like he puts up these bizarre shots at the rim. I like to see him finish better, because I think he's a smooth athlete. He's not too rugged like a Karl Anthony Towns driving to the rim. But OG just needs to tighten up that finishing. He seems a little too loose. He just needs to also tighten up that handle as well. That's something he's never really been great at. But if he plays with a little more control, and most of the time he does, but he's just got to really tighten that finishing aspect. So credit to OG Anunoby hitting that clutch 3 and really improving his shooting overall. And that's kind of the OG Anunoby we need to see from him day in and night in and night out, especially against the better teams. Now, to just get to some other points as well, we'll start off with Karl Anthony Towns. I thought he had a really poor game. He only finished with about 11 points, 4-11 from the field, 1 of 5 from 3. Got himself into foul trouble, which was unnecessary. Luckily, the Knicks had Mitchell Robinson. Precious Achiuwa would only play 4 minutes as well before I get into Mitch. Towns didn't defend the rim at all night. And most of the points that the Grizzlies scored were from the paint, and they're one of the top teams that do so. So I don't know what kind of game plan that the Knicks threw in there, but Karl Anthony Towns was just not doing his job defensively, was barely putting a contest up. Obviously, the Knicks love to play the drop coverage, and boy, has it surrendered a lot of points in the pick and roll, and you saw a lot of that tonight, especially with Karl Anthony Towns on some plays being out of place on those rebounds, out of position. So that was poor on him. And yes, he hit a 3 in the fourth quarter. He started to get his momentum a little bit. But I just like to see Karl Anthony Towns, and this is going to sound like very redundant, but put a hand up. Deter players at the rim. Mitchell Robinson can do it. Why can't you? Because I'm going to break into Mitchell Robinson right now. Despite him playing only 12 minutes, those minutes were impactful minutes. Now, there were some nice moments from Mitch. I don't think he put a block up this game, but overall only finished with 1 foul, because usually with Mitch, there's the warning sign of, okay, he might get into foul trouble this minute or that minute. More so was a concern with Towns. But with the defense overall, obviously he was grabbing a board or two. Much more sound rotations. Much more clean rotations. Everybody knew where to be. And just having that presence at the rim, I felt. And now the Knicks obviously play their drop coverage with Mitchell Robinson as well. Now we didn't see this, but I think once Mitchell Robinson gets more caught up to speed and he gets more minutes on the floor, we'll see a little more aggressive coverages in the pick and roll. But defenders like Bridges and McBride and Anunoby, that takes pressure off of them, because with Towns, there's basically no room for error. If you allow a drive to the rim, that player's going to finish. But if you allow a drive to the rim with Mitchell Robinson hanging back, he's at least going to try to contest the shot. He only finished with 1 personal foul. That was on Brandon Clark on an and one. But most of the time, and also as well, not in just terms of the defense, when Mitchell Robinson was out there, most of the time the Knicks were going on a run. because it was mainly in part due to their defense and causing turnovers as well, with Mitchell Robinson just being the reliable safety blanket that he always is. And that's what a lot of Knicks fans missed. That's what we missed. That's what the Knicks missed overall. So credit to Mitchell Robinson. I hope he continues to play like this. Again, praying that he continues to stay healthy. Knock on wood. Plus 11 on the floor as well. So give him a lot of credit. He's due for it. Also as well, just in the scoring aspect, and I'll mention this as well, Mikal Bridges, undeniably the most underrated clutch play of the game. Now you had Jalen Brunson's three, brought the Knicks up by one. OG Anunoby wins the game for the Knicks. But with about a minute left, I want to say, with a minute left, Ja Morant they inbounded the ball to Ja Morant. Bridges playing tight as hell defense, full press. What Mikal Bridges is doing. Love the aggressiveness. Originally, I thought they called a foul because Ja Morant tripped. I think he tripped over himself, actually. But regardless, Morant picks the ball up, continues to drive. I originally thought they called a foul on Bridges. Like, oh my God, don't do that. It was actually an 8-second violation. And that was the most underrated play of the game. Not only that, but also, Ja Morant made a really dumb mistake at the end of the third quarter, I believe it was, where he, after the ball was put up for a shot, it was a half-court shot or whatever, just to beat the buzzer at Hopes, but the Knicks did not do that. Morant tosses the ball onto the other side of the stands. Officials give him a tee. OG Anunoby earns a free throw, and he makes it. But Bridges, with his defensive impact, I'm hoping that Bridges gets some rest eventually, where Deuce McBride can fill in some of those minutes, because Bridges has earned some criticism over his time with the Knicks, and it's rightfully so. There are times where he's not consistent. I don't think Bridges made a single three in this game. He was 0 for 5. A lot of his shots came in the mid-range. Yes, he was driving to the paint. He was also key in transition, coming up the floor with the Knicks getting those points off the turnover. But the one reason you can allocate to Bridges being inconsistent defensively is the tired legs. And he leads the NBA in minutes per game. And why not give some of those minutes to Deuce McBride? McBride, I talked about the impact he's had, and especially in the last couple of games, as well with the defense and the overall shooting aspect, playing 28 minutes per game tonight. Why can't you give him more minutes? Why not? Same thing for Josh Hart. Let him earn some rest. He only played 29 minutes, obviously because of the foul trouble as well. But that just gives you the opportunity to not put in Landry Shamet. I think he's utterly useless. Pretty much cardio out there. Deuce McBride, you're going to take Josh Hart's minutes. You're going to take some of Mikal Bridges' minutes. Maybe you'll take some of OG's minutes as well. Give these guys some rest. You have a useful tool. McBride being the best bench player you have. Versatile. Can obviously play the 2 or the 1, obviously. But give these guys some rest, man. It would help so much. But to that point, Mikal Bridges, without him, definitely with impact in this game, would have liked to see him knock down the 3 ball. Wasn't there tonight. Just a lot of his shots, and I think Monica McNaught brought this up in the broadcast, a lot of those shots were long. I should say weren't long. A lot of those shots were short because he just wasn't putting leg into it. And ironically enough, with OG's made threes, aside from that one in the corner, wasn't really great. And that's something that OG is usually really good at, the corner 3, most efficient at. He was a lot of those threes made above the break. So that's a great thing for Anunoby to improve on. Obviously, you hope he improves from the corners. Another standout note or two. You had Precious Achiuwa, as I mentioned, playing 4 minutes. Very limited minutes as well, and that's something you'd like to see. And it's nothing against Precious. You obviously have Mitchell Robinson, Karl-Anthony Towns being the big man duo. You'll probably see less of Precious, and I think he was more so playing because of foul trouble from Towns. But Achiuwa, I think, is meant to be defensively, yes, he's a 5. Well, defensively, he's a 4, I would say, because of the size, but the versatility adds in as well. And offensively, he's a 5 because you don't want him to affect the spacing too much. 3 points, 0 from plus minus, 4 minutes. Not much going, but more moving on. So when Mitchell Robinson comes back to speed, I think you'll see less of Precious, and rightfully so. His negative impact on the floor when it comes to offense is way too much. And I'm giving Precious his flowers defensively, but overall you'll see less minutes of him, and I hope that's a trend. Also as well, got to hand it to Jalen Brunson. Continues, and I think he in my opinion, he's the front runner for clutch player of the year. Brunson knocking down clutch three after clutch three. Brunson knocking down a clutch three against the Sixers. Clutch three here against the Grizzlies. Not only that, making the clutch pass. He knows that a double's coming. He drives to the right of them. I should say the left of them, really, because there were two defenders coming on. Drives to their left, comes into the paint, stops, pops, looks, Anunoby out of the corner for three. And that's really a great rebuttal to the criticism that he gets from some Knicks fans that says, oh, he's not a point guard. He scores too much. He looks to score way too much. And at times I would agree, but Brunson has just a great understanding of the game. You know what? They saw me make a three earlier to put us up by one. I'll bet they're going to double the clutch play of the year. And that's a clutch play. Brunson going to the rack, kicks out to OG Anunoby, knocks down the three. Knicks win. And a great defensive stop, must I say, to reflect on Mikal Bridges' great defensive stop at the end on John Moran as well. But regardless, the Knicks come out 114-113. Tomorrow they'll be playing the Miami Heat in Miami. But if you guys haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well, turn on that notification bell so you know when I go live or I drop a new video. I appreciate y'all's continued support. I'll be back with another recap video soon enough, or just in general more content. But appreciate y'all's support once again. Let's go Knicks.